Hey friend, thanks for joining me today. So today I wanted to just explore some of what we kind of call like pre-Pilates exercises. Pre-Pilates, whatever that really means. Anyway, so the idea behind it is just sort of preparatory exercises for what is kind of considered like the real Pilates exercises. Now, with that said, exercise is exercise, movement is movement. It's all beneficial and it all has its place. There's no like pinnacle of some expression of the exercise. But with that said, I do feel like occasionally it's really nice to just connect back in with the basics. If you've been on vacation or if you've just kind of gotten out of your practice, it's a way to connect to the principles and also get a nice quick little full-bodied workout in. So let's get going. I'm gonna start on your back. And just find a comfortable position with your feet, about hip distance apart and the arms relaxed. Take a few deep breaths. On your exhale, imagine your bones getting heavy. All of your bones. The bones of your skull, the bones of your rib cage. You can see as I start to imagine things getting heavier, it feels like I begin to give myself permission to take up more space on my mat. I can feel that my shoulder blades want to wiggle a little bit, that I kind of want to create a little bit more room between my pelvis and my ribs. And then as we go on with this breath, just see if you can start to sustain the exhale a little bit longer than your inhale. Easy inhale through the nose, maybe blow the air out of the mouth. And the longer you begin to sustain that exhale, the more all of those core muscles, your torso, will just start to kick on naturally. One more breath. Sinking, sinking, sinking. Start to draw our focus towards the pelvis and the hips, and we're simply going to tip the pelvis towards the face, like you're slashing a bowl of water in the direction of your chin or your nose, and then take the pelvis towards the heels. Pelvis towards the face, pelvis towards the heels. Sloshing the water towards your belly button, spilling the water in between your legs. You can start to notice how maybe the reverberation of this movement, these really simple pelvic tilts, starts to kind of work its way all the way up towards the crown of the head. It's nothing that you really need to do to make that happen. It's more of allowing it to happen. So even in this very simple kind of foundational pre-Pilates movement, we're starting to introduce the idea of spinal articulation and how all of those lovely, really intelligently designed joints in your spine can communicate with each other. Let's do a couple more. Tip, tip, last one. And tip. And then just find a comfortable position between those two extremes where you feel your pelvis nice and secure and wide on the mat. Let's reach those arms straight up to the ceiling, palms facing towards each other to start. Fingertips go to the sky, and then drop the shoulders back down to the mat. Fingertips go up to the sky, shoulders drop down. Just two more. Starting to move the shoulder blades, feeling that width in the upper back as the fingers move skyward, and then a little bit of engagement in the upper back as the shoulders go back down to the mat. Let's do one more. And back. From there, reach the fingertips up skyward and then go ahead and catch the fingertips behind the head. Widen the elbows as much as you can. And I would recommend having a nice deep interlace of the fingers. So really basket weave the fingers together and then gently pull the fingers apart. So you feel the elbows reaching out to the diagonals of the room. The upper back is wide. We're going to nod the chin to the chest like you're saying yes, hugging the chin close in, and then begin to peel the head, neck, and shoulders up off of the mat.
pause there and pretend whatever shirt you're wearing, I'm wearing this kind of like a little crop top today, I'm gonna push the back of my crop top into the mat more and see how that action of that task that I just gave myself maybe makes my ribs drop and maybe deepens the experience of that abdominal connection, and then release back down. So these are sometimes called chest lifts or ab curls. It's kind of the beginning of what we would do in our classical hundreds, the way that you'd start a classical Pilates mat workout, or any of the abdominal work. This is kind of the beginning, the pre-exercise. Chin to chest, elbows wide. Let's go for 3 and 2. Keep pressing the back of your shirt into the mat to lift the head, neck, and shoulders up. And 1. I'm going to slip my hands out behind my head and just press them down onto the mat one more time. I'm going to see if I can keep my spine and my pelvis really still, okay, like I'm balancing a little cup of water right here on my low belly. I'm just going to see what it would feel like to float one knee up and lower down, and then other knee up. Really gonna imagine that I'm balancing something right in between my hip points, a little bit lower than my belly button. So instead of giving myself a ton of cues about what to do with my ribs and my pelvis and my spine, I'm just saying, hey, you stay still. You get to move. And by you, I'm meaning my legs. So the idea that we're working on here is, can we differentiate the movement of the hip, of the leg, from the movement of the torso? Okay, and the answer is yes, we can do that. We just have to be strategic about it. Let's do one more. And last one. Let's combine some of those movements together. So I'm going to interlace my hands behind my head. Again, elbows are going to go wide. Now I'm going to curl as I draw that knee up and lower down. So there are more parts moving here. But I'm still seeing, for our purposes today, if I can keep my little beverage, my little glass of water, mine has a lemon in it, you know, to be fancy, right here, really level and balanced. Let's do one more each side. I'm nodding my chin to my chest like I'm saying yes, and continuing that as I curl up. Now let's add a little bit of complexity here into rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and look over to one side of the room as I lift the leg up and lower back down. And then other side. I'm seeing if I can keep my elbows as they are, nice and wide out to the sides of the room. And then I'm using my eyes to help me look where I'm going, or to look where I'm going, okay? Finding rotation. How's my little glass of water doing, or your little glass of water doing? Could be a different beverage. Coffee is always a good choice, like a nice little glass of wine or something. Last one. Excellent. From there, we're going to go ahead and catch the hands on the backs of the thighs and simply roll up to sit. You can also roll off to one side and come to sit up. So we're going to start to introduce just a little more of that idea of spinal articulation and mobility. So I'm going to sit up tall. I'm going to take my hands back behind my thighs, and then I'm going to imagine my tailbone is starting to reach forward in between my feet as I make a round shape through my spine. And then I'm simply going to roll to sit up tall again. Tailbone's going to shoot forward like I'm trying to move my mat forward towards my feet, rolling down. Round shape through the spine, and then grow the spine up tall to a straight shape. 2 more times, rolling down and rolling up. Not being afraid to use my hands for support here, just experiencing what it is to make a round shape with the spine, and then to make a long shape with the spine. Last time. Can think about tipping the pubic bone and the little sit bones up to the ceiling to get that little feeling of pelvic tilt that we explored. Good, and then sit up tall. From there, I'm going to stretch my legs out into a straddle position. If the hamstrings feel a little tight, go ahead and bend your knees, not a big deal. And now we're going to take that idea of making a round shape with the back more into the upper body. So I'm going to reach my fingertips forward onto my mat, and then I'm just gonna start to reach my arms forward. Again, there's that round shape. And then stacking the spine up tall. So what we did before is we were mostly moving or initiating the movement through our low back. Now we're initiating the movement from higher up in the spine. And I'm thinking about using my arms to help me. So I'm really reaching towards the edge of my mat and then coming back up. The feet are flexed and my knees are looking up to the ceiling to the best of my ability. Let's do 2 more. And coming up. And 1 more. And coming up. Today I'm going to leave my legs wide because it feels like a nice wide base of support for the pelvis. And then again, I'm going to interlace my hands behind my head. I'm going to gently pull the base of the skull up and then pull the elbows wide out to the sides of the room. I'm going to go ahead and rotate and center and rotate. Now, if you feel one foot reaching a little bit more forward as you rotate, congratulations, you're a human. That's okay. So sometimes in Pilates classes or other movement classes, you might be cued to keep one part of the body really, really still as you move or rotate or move around the other part of the body, and that definitely has its value. But for today, what I'll encourage you to do is just think about making a corkscrew or spiral movement pattern with the body and be less focused on trying to keep things really still. Just enjoy the movement. Let's do 1 more each side. And last one. Okay, from there we're gonna roll over onto our tummies. And you're gonna stretch your legs straight out long behind you, maybe about hip distance apart. And then we're gonna take the hands kind of a little bit wider than the shoulders, but kind of in line with your shoulders so your elbows are pointing back. I'm just gonna hover my nose off the mat, because it's easier to talk to you so I don't smash my face. And then instead of thinking about pushing parts of the pelvis into the mat, what I'll encourage you to do is simply stretch your legs long behind you. Try to really straighten your legs. And then what you're going to do is think about pulling yourself forward, okay, with your hands. So your hands are sticky stuck to the floor. You're going to try to pull yourself forward and then begin to float the chest up and then lower down. So you can go as high as you'd like here. I'm choosing to stay kind of low today because I'm a little more interested in experiencing the movement just in my upper back. But you can definitely push down a little bit and go up higher. But what I'll encourage you to think about is the initiation of the movement as trying to pull yourself forward on your mat rather than just simply pushing with your arms and coming up. Okay, just a little bit of a different experience. So we're seeing if we can tease a bit more length out of the front of the spine as we're shortening the back of the spine. Let's do 1 more. Kind of looking slightly forward and then looking down. From there, I'm going to stack my fists and then rest my forehead on my fists. Okay, if this is not comfortable, you can always just rest your head down on flat hands. So I'm in a little bit of spinal extension here. I'm going to reach my legs long and then think about lifting one leg up and down. Other leg up and down. We're going to continue this, really trying to commit to having a very straight leg. You can imagine that someone's gently pulling your foot out from your hip. There's my train. Hi, train. Good morning. And now we're going to make a conscious decision to change the movement pattern. We're going to lift the leg up. I'm going to bend the knee, extending the leg long and lower down too. So 2 separate actions. Lifting one leg, bend the knee, extend and down. Keep reaching long. Push the entire front of the pelvis into the mat. So imagine if you had like a pair of zippered jeans, you're trying to press the whole zipper into the mat. 1 more each side. Straight leg, bent leg, straight leg, lower down. Last time. Straight leg, bent leg, straight leg, lower down. Take your hands underneath your shoulders, And you can push back to a little rounded rest position if that feels good to your spine. Okay, just a few more things. Come back down onto your bat, your bat, and then press the arms down. Your feet will be directing forward and heels are right underneath your knees to the best of your ability. We're gonna move through that posterior pelvic tilt, okay? So that's just a fancy way of saying tip the pelvis towards your face, and then we're gonna begin to peel the spine up. Pause at the top, so that's as high as you can come. I'm kind of balancing in between my shoulder blades today. And then I'm gonna peel my spine back down. Okay, so for a lot of us, it's actually kind of hard to sense the articulation in our spine. You know, it's just hard to feel, and then we get a little frustrated with, well, I can't, you know, I've heard that cue, moving one vertebrae at a time or one vertebra, and what does that really mean? So let's simplify a little bit. Instead of trying to sense sort of internally the movement that's happening, if that's working for you, go for it. If it's not working for you and it feels a little confusing, think more about the clothing that you're wearing and see if you can really lay the shirt down onto the mat. Then that changes to the waistband of your pants or your shorts. And then you try to get the back pockets or the seam of your leggings or pants down and then unfurl the spine. Same goes for the reverse. Try to peel those imaginary pockets up, and then you're peeling your waistband up, peeling your shirt up off the mat, coming up, and then just reverse that experience going down. So oftentimes giving yourself something to focus on externally takes a bit of the confusion away from these fairly complex movements. So even though we're just moving the pelvis up and down, you know, there's a lot in this movement, and there's a lot in this movement that you can take with you to your other Pilates exercises in terms of finding a nice juicy articulation through the spine and through the torso. Let's do one more. And coming down. Okay, great. From there, we're gonna roll over onto the side. I'm gonna go ahead and have you just stretch one arm long, and then bend the knees into more or less a 90-degree angle. Just 6 of everything today. We're gonna float the top leg up just to hip height and lower it back down. And float it up. As we're going through this simple movement, just check in kind of with the shape you're making. And it's as if you were sitting in a straight back chair and then we just took you and tipped you on your side. So try not to slump in the chair. It's a kind of a rounded position. Think about sitting tall, but on your side. Let's do 2 more. So finding that little crease, little work through the side hip, and 1. Now we're gonna stretch the top leg long. I'm gonna have you flex your foot and reach your heel, and then we're just gonna send the leg a little bit forward, and then you can point the foot and send it back. Just 5 more. So for our purposes today, see how it would feel to maybe reduce your range of motion. Really keep everything still. Maybe that glass of water is right here now, or that little hot cup of coffee. And you're seeing how much you can move your leg with limited movement everywhere else. And back. Let's do 1 more. And back. Excellent. Come in and up to the other side. Very nice. So starting with that 90 degree through the legs. So again, it's like you were sitting in a straight back chair and then timber, over you go on your side, and we're gonna float the leg up and down. You can either have your feet pointed or flexed, whatever feels better to you. I kind of started flexed and then I changed my mind to point. So do what feels like it gives you the best sense of your own architecture. So again, I'm thinking about primarily moving from my hip joint here, keeping everything else relatively still. Let's do 2 more. And then come up and hold. Now stretch that leg long. So here we go. There's that nice little beverage right there. We're gonna keep it balanced as the leg goes forward and back. Imagine that your foot is resting on a countertop or a table, and it's just skimming along that surface. So it's not, really doesn't have the opportunity to go way up or go way down. It's just skimming along that horizon line. And back, last 2, and back, and 1 more, and back. From there, we're gonna go ahead and sit up, sort of, and then come down onto your forearm. Okay, so we're gonna stack the knees. I'm gonna have you take your hand right underneath your bottom ribs, and we're just gonna let those ribs sag a bit, and then we're gonna lift the ribs up. But I'll encourage you to see if you can avoid shifting your hips and your shoulders towards your feet if you can keep the shoulders really stacked over your elbow. So it might feel like a slightly smaller movement, but if I were a betting person, I would say that when you keep the shoulder a little more over your elbow, you might feel a little more fun in the muscles kind of underneath the armpit there and on the underside of the ribs. Now if that's going well, just take your hand behind your head or reach the arm up towards the ceiling and continue. So this is a little pre-Pilates exercise for a lot of different side-loaded movements, side planks, side kneeling kicks, and just a really nice way to say hello to those side abdominals and get a little bit of shoulder action in this shape. Good, let's switch over to the other side. It's also a range of motion that we don't often work in. We do a lot of forward and back, just in exercise in general, a lot of moving in this direction and that direction. We sometimes kind of forget about our sides, and they're really important. So we gotta give ourselves some side love. So again, I'm thinking less about how big I can move here and really committing to the shape. So the shape is the shoulder right over the elbow. I'm letting my ribs go down and back up. Now, of course, there'll be some movement, but you can probably sense and see and feel the difference between attempting to keep your shoulder over your elbow and then really moving like that. And again, no movement is bad. And if that's going well, you can reach the arm up. Just gives you a little more expression of your wingspan. Good. And one more. Okay, great. Let's come on to all fours. Gonna plant your hands down and then knees right underneath your hips, creating that table shape. We're gonna keep the lower part of the body pretty still, and then we're gonna think about the chest dropping to the floor, the shoulder blades come together, and then your chest elevates away from the floor, your shoulder blades spread apart. Now, this is a tricky movement to cue, and it's a tricky movement to perform. So it's one of those that's really worth practicing often. So these are sometimes called shoulder blade push-ups or scapula push-ups. And the idea here is that we're taking these nice flat wing bones and we're letting them go for a ride around your rib cage. So, everybody's a little different with the cues they connect to. So for me, it's always helpful to think about my chest going down, and then I push the floor down with my hands to elevate the chest back up. That works nicely for me. Other people, it's helpful to sense the space in between the shoulder blades, and you're gonna squeeze something in between your shoulder blades and then pop that thing back up towards the ceiling. So you can give yourself some cues here and see what works best for you. The main objective is we're trying to move the shoulder blades into what we call retraction and protraction. Retraction, protraction. From there, we're gonna stay nice and still through the torso. You're gonna extend one leg back behind you as the opposite arm goes out in front of you, and then come back in. You're seeing if you can keep those shoulder blades firmly on your back. So what does that mean? Of course they're on your back. They haven't flown away from your body. But sometimes they kind of like to slide together when we do movements like this. So can you keep pushing the floor away with your hands? And can you keep the feeling that your shoulder blades are wrapping around your ribs? Good. And reach. And in. Let's do one more each side. Reach. And reach. Okay, finishing out with, I think, a pretty challenging pre-Pilates movement. It's a reverse table. All right, so again, this is a range that we don't often take our bodies into, but I think that it's a really important foundational shape that is worth exploring for many reasons, which I'll explain after I do it because this is hard. So we're gonna plant the hands down, fingers are pointing wide out to the sides of the room, feet are planted, and we're just gonna start to lift the hips up, push the feet down, push the hands down, and then lower the pelvis. So we're getting a lot going on here. We're getting some stretching in the chest, we're getting some work through the backs of the arms, definitely some work through the backs of the legs. And dare I say, your back is actually working too. Good. And down. And let's do one more. Up. And down. From there, you're just gonna lay down onto your back. Gonna take your arms to a nice goalpost position and just an easy supine twist. Just a little moment, kind of recalibrate, allowing the body to sense what it is to be in a rotated, twisted shape, and then coming back up, and then heading over to the other side. Ooh, hello. I need to spend a little more time twisting on this side. Feels a little less used to twisting on this side. And breathe. And then come to sit up. And you are all done. Thank you so much for joining me for this nice, short, sweet little pre-Pilates workout. And I'll see you next time. Take good care. Bye.